One thing I realized about myself as a photographer, as an artist, as a content creator is that I get burnt out when I don't do things that are just out of my passion, when I don't work on personal projects. Now, one thing I remember constantly doing when I was, well, not really starting out, but when I was, I would say, picking up as a professional photographer, is that even though I did not have shoots for a certain project, I would go out and look for vantage points. I would go out and look for buildings that I want to photograph. And around the end of January during Photo World Asia, it's a yearly trade show on everything photography and videography here in the Philippines. I was swamped with three presentations to give. I took the opportunity, since I was already in that city, which is Makati, to visit a building that has always gotten me curious. This building is very iconic. It's rather old, but the architectural design inside is just something that I cannot resist. What's ironic is that I've been in this building about a decade back, but only got to see the rooftop and got to shoot from the rooftop. Now, I was lucky because I had two things. Number one, I had the ZV-E10 Mark II with the Laowa 12 to 24 zoom shift lens. So I can very easily shoot and zoom in and zoom out and shift and all of that without really needing to have a more traditional setup for shooting. And this is a personal project, so I did have a bit of leeway to be more comfortable, but at the same time to also be more relaxed. The second thing I was lucky I had that day, well, I had the DJI Osmo Pocket. I wanted to take a few clips, but more importantly, I had a friend with me. His name is Angelo Rosales. He's a sports photographer. He was curious about how to use the DJI Osmo Pocket, so I was like, okay, if you want to come join me, then hold on to this and just, help me document what I'm going to do. And that's why I have some pretty nice behind the scenes clips for you for this shoot. So we got to the building. It's a commercial building. It's technically a mall, if I'm not mistaken, but there are offices inside. Now, it's pretty old. I have not read up about the history of it. I would say it was built in the 70s to the 80s and just retained the beautiful brutalist design. And of course, what's striking about this building is the abundance of hard lines, the abundance of patterns, of geometry that it's one of the things that I wish I could shoot for my professional clients, but so far I haven't had any projects that involve these. But yes, when we got inside, it was just an amazing view from corner to corner. And you can also see a bit of decay of the building because, again, it's old. I wouldn't say it's maintained to the best condition, but it makes it even more dramatic. So all the photos I had that day were from the ZV-E10 Mark II with the 12 to 24. Everything was shot handheld. Even the panoramas were shot handheld. And I just tried to keep everything leveled and steady while I was shifting the lens. So that's the personal side of this story. Now what I want to do is to show you how I would edit one of those photos, particularly a panorama that will show almost the entirety of the building. And at the same time, I'll show you how I would retouch it and also check out this new pen display from Huion, the Huion Kamvas 16 3rd Gen. Now the first part of this is actually very simple. This is a 3-piece or a 3-image panorama that I want to put together. And these are the photos that will be stitching 1, 2, and 3. And now all I need to do is select that and then go on photo merge and then panorama. The beauty of doing this with a shift lens is that even though I did not shoot with a tripod, I'm able to control the perspective very well, just as long as I pointed the camera in the same direction while I was shifting. So we have this, we can technically warp that, but if we want the lines to be as straight as possible, then we can just auto crop. That's not going to be much of a waste of information anyway. And yeah, we click merge and it's gonna put it together. Now, this is not definitely the treatment that I want to use. And the first thing that I would do is very easily go into the camera profiles. I can use camera matching and use maybe the IN, for example. We can do that, but at the same time, I want to really just emphasize the details and the contrast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head on over to the black and white profiles. I am always biased with B&W 12 or 11. I feel like to bring out the best contrast, I'll use 12. Now, something I do to refine the contrast for this, and I want to call this gray grading, because all you really need to do is to shift the color temperature and you're going to see a world of difference when it comes to the shades of gray. And I want there to be some really bright parts, but at the same time have a gradual bleed of the brighter parts of gray. Now, what I do next is I'd even give it a bit of a subtle vignette. This is something I always use if you've been watching my editing demos. It's just really something I like doing, giving it more emphasis just by redirecting the flow. And I don't want to go too much. That definitely jumped. But I never cross 0.9. We're at 0.79. I think we're good with that. Now, the downside of me not using a tripod is, as you can see, this is not perfectly leveled. It's not distorted, but it's not perfect in terms of geometry. So we'll go to transform and then use the guided upright tool. What I want to do here is just basically trace this beam. Trace that as much as I can. There is a bit of distortion on this lens. I did say that on the review. That's totally fine. Then we'll go down to the bottom. Now the problem here is that we don't really have structural beams or anything that I would trust as perfectly aligned. What I would do is just follow this in terms of the design of the tiles, hoping that it was perfectly aligned when the building was built. And you already saw that shift. Now what I want to do now is trace these verticals. I know these are cables. Yeah, these are cables. And I think we can trust them in terms of them being perfectly vertical, and we've basically created a grid, and that now makes this as close as we can to leveled and upright. Now all I'm gonna do is actually make sure that the escalators here in the middle are perfectly centered, and that's it for this part. Now, before we start doing the retouching, let's talk about what we're going to use for that. And of course, we're going to be using the Huion Kamvas 16 Gen 3 pen display. Now, this wasn't really something exciting for me before I actually read into what's new about it. This is the third generation. I've had the second generation of this, and I've had, of course, a lot of other pen displays from Huion and other brands as well. But ironically, when I opened the box, the first thing that I saw that I actually got impressed by is a piece of paper, and that's this. And it's a full color calibration report. Now, when you read off the website, it would say that this is delta E less than 1.5 as a standard for all of these, this model basically. But the color calibration report actually says sRGB average delta E of 0.59, which is a very, very high rating for color accuracy. I don't know if most of the individual units of the product would have something as good as this, or if the brand selected something with possibly the best rating, because these reports are individual for every single piece of this product. So I got one with really, really good scores, and I hope that most of them are very close to this. Now the Kamvas 16 Gen 3 is a 15.8 IPS panel with 60 Hz. It does 8-bit color and of course does 120% sRGB, 90% RGB, and as I said, very, very good color accuracy ratings. I would of course have to warm this up and then calibrate it to the lights of this room, but then again, if I do that in this video, you won't really see the difference because again, you're viewing it from different screens. In any case, of course, let's talk about the physical features. This whole thing is 421 by 236 millimeters and is about 12 millimeters thick. It's fairly light. I wouldn't say this is a 1 kilogram, maybe less. But within that is a working area of 350 by 197 millimeters. And of course, that is also the size of the display. So this is actually a 15.8 inch, 2.5K display, of course, with an IPS panel. Now, this doesn't have touch sensitivity, and some users actually like that because they wouldn't have to worry about their palms. What's important is, of course, the pen. Now, Huion and other brands do have some that are also touch sensitive. Well, the one I've been using recently is the Kamvas Pro 19, and it is touch sensitive, which is cool. But I also appreciate the fact that this one does not have that, which makes it actually more comfortable if you're only thinking about the pen. Now, over on this side is a power button, and then we have 1 and 2 dials, one at the top and one at the bottom, and 6 customizable buttons. I love the fact that there are buttons and dials on this one because this just makes everything more simple. And of course, you can rotate the entire setup. So if, for example, you're left-handed, you need your left hand to do the drawing, and then your right hand can be the one to control the buttons and the dials. If you're right-handed, then it's the other way. Your right hand is here, drawing, and then your left hand will be on the buttons. Now, when you open the box, there are actually a lot of cables that I don't really want to show you. Why? Because I hate those cables. They're very useful. One is a 3-in-1 cable with an HDMI cable, a USB-C for data, and a USB-C for power, and then it leads to a single USB-C port. Perfect, right? However, I love the fact that you can actually skip using that and even skip using the power brick and instead just use a single cable. So now we talk about the 2 ports on the side. One is for the 3-in-1 cable, and that's basically, you only use that if you're using the 3-in-1 cable. However, if you want to keep things simple, you use this one cable already connected to my laptop and use this other cable to the more, well, I would say more shallow port, and turn this on and we're good. Of course, it also comes with a very light stand actually that you can basically change in terms of the height. But you know what? I don't want to use this for now. I want to keep this flat on the desk, so that's cool. Now, it only comes with one pen, I guess, because it's not the Pro version. It doesn't come with a pen case either, but it comes with a pen stand and the extra nibs inside this stand. And that's all I really need. Okay, so now let's retouch this image. Now, here's what I want to keep in mind. I want to try and show it as accurate as possible when it comes to the architecture. And what's going to be tricky about this that I'm not even sure I'm going to be able to execute is for me to be able to remove this. I'm guessing this is a store. I'm also guessing this is a store or maybe like a concessionaire stand or of some sort. I will try to clean it up as much as I can, but I don't know if that will be entirely possible. I know there is, of course, generative fill or generative AI. I can use that, but that's not even going to be able to perfectly recreate what's supposedly underlying the structures. So we're gonna focus on getting out some annoying reflections. We're gonna focus on getting out, of course, some of the people as well. I do wish I had a shot with someone right smack here in the middle, but I didn't get that, or maybe I did, but not in this frame. But anyway, that should be fine. I'll just show you how I would retouch this masterpiece of an architectural structure. Now, as I showed you earlier, this button is set to spacebar. This button is also set to spacebar, and that is because I'm going to use that to basically move around, because this is not a touch sensitive screen. That's fine. Now we're going to zoom in a little bit more, and then we're going to move around. Press this button right here for the remove tool. And there. So this will now allow me to start removing the unwanted visual elements. And yes, this would have been totally different as a process before a year back. Now, it's not going to perfectly recreate everything. So imagine how this would perform in terms of recreating a huge chunk of it using generative fill. I don't think it's going to be perfect. So we're just going to have to clean up whatever is inside. Okay, so you know what I realized, and I noticed that I'm not perfectly aligned. We're going to switch to the working area and use monitor calibration. We're going to use the pen. Okay, now that we've done that, this should be better. Yes. So most of it is going to be the remove tool. And that's why I'm going to speed this up. Okay, some of the things I would remove that are not entirely artifacts are these reflections, just because they can be quite distracting to the overall visual design. Clean this up just a little bit. We're gonna have to embrace the existence of this covered up store right here. Just clean it up. I'm guessing that's a coffee shop. When it comes to the, I guess, dirt, I don't want to remove too much because we don't want to take away the fact that this building is really old. Just the ones that are actually distracting. I will take out these, I don't know what you call them, deposits of whatever. I will, I'll stick with the stains. I'll stick with the discoloration, because that, of course, helps us tell the story of the natural, I guess, wear and tear of this architectural landmark. So you don't want to do too much. This is not for commercial purposes anyway, so these are one of the times wherein my goal is not entirely to make it look perfect. Instead, I want it to look impactful, and part of the impact would be the blemishes. Now, I'm pretty sure I missed some spots. I will, of course, do a more thorough run. But yeah, basically, this is what we have. And there we go. Now, if you made it this far into the video, just thank you. Thank you so much. Why? Because I know you got through the personal story, which I love, which, you know, more than the gear review, I feel like it's something I love doing more. And I hope I was able to give you a bit of information as to how I would edit photos like these. And of course, at the same time, the new tablet is really cool. And if you have any questions about any of them, if you have any questions about my personal story or about the process I just showed you, or you have questions about the new tablet, then of course you can leave them down below in the comment section. And yes, if you're new to the channel, my name is Nicco Valenzuela. I am a landscape and architectural photographer, a content creator, of course, and I create content about photography and the tech and the gear that I use. And if you're into that, then do click that subscribe button and hit that notification bell. I'm giving you time to click that subscribe button. But yes, and might as well share this to your friends who would be interested in something like this. In any case, thanks for watching.